Story time about how my boyfriend caught me with my sugar daddy. Quick disclaimer, this is not my story time and my eyes are red because I got sunscreen in them. So my boyfriend and I have been together for almost 4 years. Relationship itself is good, but the only problem is that he doesn't really pay for anything. I pay for the bills, almost all of the rent, and I even pay when we go on dates. I've always had a good job and he's always had like mediocre jobs here and there. I've always told him that I want him to get a better job and he says no because he's comfortable at the job that he's at. Meanwhile, I'm busting my butt and paying for everything. The only thing is that I tell my boyfriend that I'm hanging out with friends. I was out with my sugar daddy one night and my boyfriend walks into the restaurant. Part 2 is up. I'm having dinner with my sugar daddy when my boyfriend walks into the restaurant. By the way, my sugar daddy did not know I had a boyfriend. As soon as I see my boyfriend walk in, I tell my sugar daddy that I have to go to the bathroom. I literally bolted to the bathroom. As I'm in the bathroom stall freaking out, my boyfriend calls me. So I answer the phone and he says, "Hey, are you at the restaurant? I swear to God, I just saw you run into the bathroom. Who's that guy with you at the table?" I was caught. I had no option but to be honest with my boyfriend. I tell him to come to the bathroom and he comes in and I explain to him that it is my sugar daddy. Then he stares at me for a few seconds and asks me, "How much money does he give you?" I decided to lie and I said 3,000 instead of the 5,000. And my boyfriend says, "Wow." And I'm like, "Aren't you mad?" And he said, "No, you're just gonna have to share now." Excuse me? Then I told him I didn't want to be in the relationship any longer because he's a man-child and I had to pay for everything. Begged me not to leave him and he said that he would get a better job. We're still in the bathroom at this point and my sugar daddy's waiting for me outside. Then my boyfriend says, "If you don't want me to go out there and tell him that you have a boyfriend, you better start giving me some of that money." I was shocked. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend threatened me and told me that if I didn't share the money, he would tell my sugar daddy that I had a boyfriend. I believed him. I went back to my sugar daddy's table and we basically had dinner with my boyfriend sitting across from us having dinner with his friends. The whole time I was trying to figure out how I would break up with my boyfriend without having to share the money that my sugar daddy gave me. I told my sugar daddy that I wasn't feeling well. He called me an Uber to take me back to my apartment. I got to my apartment and I started packing my stuff. Like, I knew my boyfriend was bad for making me pay for everything, but I didn't know he was that bad. Freaking threatened me. Then he starts calling my phone, sends a text message and it says, "I'm gonna be home in 5 minutes. So I gathered all my things, ran downstairs, and waited behind the building for the Uber. And my boyfriend sees me, comes up to me and rips my bag away from me. Tried to get my phone, but I took it away from him. And he said that I had to share the money that my sugar daddy gave me. Finally, the Uber arrives and I jump in. My boyfriend actually pulled me by my hair to try to get me out of the car. I've blocked him and haven't spoken to him since, and I'm still with my sugar daddy. Story time about how I lost my V card and my dad found out. My dad is insanely strict. I couldn't wear skirts or shorts. I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. I couldn't have guy friends. I was never allowed to go out anywhere by myself. Instead, my dad sent my older brother with me everywhere. He hated and I hated. By the way, I was 16 when this all happened. I needed some type of freedom. So I decided to join track and field. I asked my dad for permission and he said yes. At first, I loved it. I trained every day after school and I also met new friends, guys and girls. And my brother wasn't there, so I was able to talk to all the boys. Well, there was this one boy, let's call him Jake. Jake was so cute. I knew that he liked me and he obviously knew that I liked him. He was the fastest guy in the group and he would go out of his way to help me out and give me advice. So we started talking on the phone almost every day for like 10 minutes. He knew my dad was strict. We would see each other at practice almost every day. He asked me to be his girlfriend and I said yes. It was our little secret. We decided to stay late after practice one day. We thought we were by ourselves at the gym. We started making out, and one thing led to another. Part 2, my boyfriend and I were doing it at the school gym. We thought we were by ourselves. It happened really fast and we got dressed. Then I went home and had dinner with my parents. Everything was completely normal and fine. Until I get a text message from my friend. Her text said that someone saw Jake and I doing it in the school gym. Boy, did my stomach drop. I instantly started to panic because my brother went to the same high school. I knew if the rumor got around, my brother would eventually hear it and tell my dad. So I told my friend it wasn't true. I didn't sleep that whole night. I got to school the next day and everyone was looking at me weird. And at lunchtime, I get a text message from my brother saying that he needs to talk to me. I knew I'd been caught. I didn't reply to his text and I just ignored it. I went to find Jake and I told him what happened. He told me that someone from track and field saw us doing it and started spreading the rumor. He told me we should just deny it and I agreed. My heart was pounding in my stomach the entire day. I go home and as soon as I walk in, my mom, dad, and brother are on the couch. And without saying a word, my dad grabs my phone and starts reading my text messages. Part 3 is up. My dad takes my phone and starts reading all of my messages, which confirms that I have a boyfriend and I've been talking to him every single day. My mom was crying the whole time and my dad was just yelling at me. He took away my phone, my computer, and even took the door down from my room so that I had no privacy. Then my dad made me get in the car and he drove me to Jake's house. We knocked on the door and his mom opened the door. She tried to calm my dad down, but he wasn't listening. Then Jake comes downstairs and my dad just starts yelling at him too. But Jake tried to deny everything. His mom told him to stop lying and then he finally said yes. We did it. My dad told him to never look for me again. I never saw Jake after that, and now that it's been a few years, I'm dating a girl now and I don't know how to tell Story time about how I did the dirty with a celebrity. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I've been modeling for the past 2 years, specifically on Instagram. I basically made it my job to DM as many celebrities as I possibly could. I knew that it would only be a matter of time before at least one said yes. And that's what happened many times. I would usually DM about 5 celebrities a day, men and women. The next day I checked my DMs and one of them had written back. This was a huge celebrity who I was not expecting to reply, but I was freaking out. We had a conversation all through DM, and then he asked me for my phone number. So we moved over to texting, and quickly he asked me if I wanted to get together. I was like, duh. So we decided to meet at a bar. But because of COVID, we decided we would both get tested and then meet up. Really responsible. We both tested negative, and then I got ready and went to the bar. Of course, I was extremely nervous. I show up to the bar, and he greets me right away, and we just start having a conversation. He asked me if I wanted to be an actress and told me that he could help me out with that. But we all know that was just a lie. We go to his car, and so I'm making out with this big celebrity in his car. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Let me explain how we got in his car. We were at the bar flirting, and then he brought up acting. He said that if I wanted to become an actress, he would be happy to help me. And he said that he actually was staying at a hotel room nearby. That he had a script he wanted me to read because he thought I'd be great for the leading lady. I was floored. I didn't think he was going to be moving that quick. I hesitated, but eventually said yes. Once we're in the hotel room, he orders champagne and we start watching a movie. And he pulls out his laptop and tells me to read the script. As I'm reading the script, we start kissing and doing other things you guys already know. After we finished, I asked him if I could continue reading the script. Then he said, no, I'm good. My heart sank and I thought I was going to poo my pants. I said, what do you mean you're good? Then he said he couldn't cast someone who would just sleep with someone on the first date. Then he just sat on his laptop and ignored me. Of course I left. I was holding back my tears because I was not going to let him see me cry. Once I got home, I cried and I decided to block him from all my social media. As I was about to block him from my phone, he messages me and tells me to go back to the hotel. This was 2 hours after he told me to leave. But of course, I actually went back to the hotel. I go up to his room and there he is waiting for me. Part 3 is up. After this big celebrity tells me to leave, I leave. But 2 hours later, he's asking me to go back to his hotel room. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. So I went back to his hotel room even though he was a little bit rude. I just couldn't give up the opportunity of dating a celebrity. I show up to his hotel room and he apologizes. He said that he has trust issues from all his past relationships. Then I pointed out to him that he had the hotel room ready to go and that it happened to be just by the bar we were at. He stays quiet and then he says, I need you to sign this NDA. I read it and signed it, mostly because I just didn't want any trouble. Then he says, hey, I want to order dinner for us. What do you want to eat? Then he said he wanted to wine and dine me. He said that he liked me, but the whole NDA thing really threw me off. We ended up watching a movie and then I go back to my place. The following day he calls me and asks me if I want to hang out again. We had lunch and then I told him I had to go home. He's been asking me out ever since, but I don't know. I kind of get a bad feeling from him. What do you guys think I should do? He is a celebrity.
Story time about my abusive ex-boyfriend. So a little background information. I was 16 and in 10th grade. I already feel my nose running. So first off, I just want to say, do not judge me for the things that I have done. I was young and thought I was in love. And in all honesty, I really had no good relationship to learn from or to teach me what a healthy relationship even was. It was just me and my mother. And let's just say she did not have the best track record with the men that she's been with. Take my dad, for example. I haven't seen him since I was 2. Not gonna sit here and say it's her fault, but she's kind of a psycho when it comes to relationships, but that doesn't mean I love her any less. Anyways, when I was in 10th grade, I had a boyfriend who we are going to call Scott. I feel like it's always the Scotts that are the toxic ones, but I could just be thinking of Scott from the Kardashians and how toxic he is. He was a senior, so he was 2 years older than me. And when we first met, we really seemed to hit it off, to be honest. We were both into all the same things. We would hang out at the same spots after school. And when I first met him, there was really nothing not to like about the guy. So the summer going into my 10th grade year, we had decided to start dating. At first we had our ups and downs like any regular couple. If you don't fight, you're weird. But not only would we fight, we would break up and get back together constantly. But it was never anything like super serious, to be honest. It would last like a day or two. And I didn't see that as a red flag at first. To be honest, I thought that was normal. You know, you always hear couples fight, that's what makes a relationship better. I'm starting to see why that might have been bad advice now. I think whoever says it's normal for couples to fight probably just wants to feel better about the fact that them and their significant other fight all the time. And I just dropped my brush on the floor. Not to mention, when he would get mad, he would throw stuff and break shit. Yeah, I didn't see that as a red flag either. I thought it was just shit that guys did whenever they got angry. They don't know how to control their emotions, you know? Well, then the one day I decided to talk to one of my friends about it, and she basically said he sounds like a manipulative 5-year-old. 5-year-old in a way that throwing shit and screaming whenever you're upset is not adult behavior. And then I kind of started to realize that too. So eventually I tell my mom how he threw my computer at me the one time, right? And that he smashed it on the ground. She got pissed the fuck off and tried to drive me to his house and try to get him to pay for it. I was like, girl, no. Nope, 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 nope. Wasn't gonna happen. Was not gonna happen. But seeing how angry my mom got about the whole situation, and also thinking about the fact that Scott wouldn't have been allowed over my house again, I told her that it was the other way around. I threw the computer at him, I broke the computer, this, that, and the next. She definitely thought it was a little sus, but eventually she dropped it, and she just told me that, like, it wasn't okay to act like that, you know, so I was like, okay, la-di-da. But after that, shit just got way worse than I ever thought it could. We were at this party one night that one of the kids in my school was throwing. Well, we were having a pretty good night until we were walking through the party, and I accidentally bump into this guy. I kid you not, 3 seconds later, I am dragged out of this party by my arm, like, he's like dragging me out by my wrist. And once we were outside, he started calling me a bunch of names, and then he smacks me in the face and took my car. Obviously at this point I'm very frightened, but like I said, I thought that this was love. Now looking back at it, obviously I was wrong, but during the time, like I said, I thought that men acted like this because they loved us. So instead of calling the police, which is what I should have done, I decided to stay at my friend's for a few days, and I would text him every day trying to get him to calm down. I told him I was so sorry for how I acted, and that if I were him, I would have acted the exact same way. Looking back on it, I was stupid. Finally, once I got him to calm down, he gave me my car back. It was like I was fucking grounded by my boyfriend. What the fuck? Oh, and let me just add this in here real quick. The one time I had locked him out of my car after he told me that he cheated on me, right? And when I wouldn't let him back in the car, he broke my window and basically pulled me out of the car by my hair. Then proceeded to throw me on the ground, and he pinned me down, screaming at me, saying, "Why don't you love me? You really think you can hurt me? Da 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 da." Just like a bunch of weird manipulative shit. Looking back at this, I really wish that I would have left sooner, but here we are. But everything really became clear right before my graduation. Not only was I physically tired, I was mentally exhausted as well. My friends kind of put 2 and 2 together at one point, actually a few times, but I would always try to convince them that it really wasn't like that they're overthinking the whole situation, because, you know, I was trying to protect him for some reason. But the last straw for me, I would say, was our senior pep rally. So after the rally, on our way back to class, I see Scott and I go to say hi to him, and at the same time I'm going to say hi, one of his friends walks up and starts talking to him also. So I say hi to his friend and I tell him that, you know, you guys looked great at the pep rally, da 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 da, just trying to make small talk, I guess. Well, that must have set Scott off again, because as soon as Mike walked away, Scott pulls me into this hallway by the locker rooms and starts flipping the fuck out. He again accuses me of sleeping with everybody, saying that I'm a whore and I don't love him. And when I tried to calm him down, he snapped again. He took my phone out of my hand, threw it against the wall, and when I went to go pick it up off the ground, he grabbed me by my hair. And at this point, I'm pissed. So I'm like, "You're not a man. You're just a piece of shit. This, that, and the next." And then he punches me in the face. Yep. Right in the mouth. So now my mouth is pouring blood, and he decides to run off because he heard teachers and students running down the hallway because I was screaming. At that point, I get taken to the nurse, the cops come and talk to me. Scott was never allowed to step foot in the school again. My mom picked me up. She was pissed off that I didn't tell her about any of this. He lost his scholarships for wrestling. And when I talked to the cops, I realized I couldn't lie to them because there were cameras all around there. So I'm honestly glad I'm out of that relationship now, though. It was toxic and draining, having to worry about what was gonna happen next in this relationship.
I made my teacher cry. Story time. When I was in 2nd grade, I had this teacher and she was the devil, and we're gonna name her Miss Jackson. And the reason I call her a devil is because she would say really mean things to me to my face. She would be like, Ty, stop talking like that, you sound like a little girl. Or, your favorite color can't be pink, you have to choose one of the boy colors. And since I was so young, I didn't understand how serious these things were, and I didn't know I can get her in trouble. And I would go home sad like every single day. Eventually my mom noticed and she asked me what was wrong. So I told her some of the things that Miss Jackson would say to me, and my mom was mad. And my mom was like, the next time she says something to you, say something rude back, and if you get in trouble, I'll handle her from there. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. Now, Miss Jackson was a heavy lady, so I knew if I said something rude to her, it would be about her weight. Though we don't body shame around here. We don't do that, okay? So I'm in school eating lunch with my friends who happen to be girls, and Miss Jackson comes up to me and she's like, shouldn't you be eating with the boys? So I looked at her and I was like, shouldn't you be eating a salad? And the lunchroom started laughing, and then she started crying.
Okay, so story time. So basically one time in 5th grade, my dad took me to get breakfast from Dunkin' Donuts. We went there before school like always, and as we were there, this strange man outside was staring at me and like making faces. Super creepy. We didn't know him or anything, so we walked inside and I was kind of freaked out. I told my dad that I was creeped out by him, and he told me that nothing bad was gonna happen. Or so he thought. So we got our foods and we ate it. Everything was fine, chill. After we were done, we got up to leave. The man was gone by now, so I felt better. But then on the way to my school, I saw him walking on the sidewalk. Like, I figured he was going to his house or like somewhere else. When we got to my school, no one was outside. It was kind of weird. We went to open the door because my dad was a part of the PTA, so he came in with me. The door for some reason was locked. My music teacher out of nowhere ran out and brought us inside quickly. She told us that our whole school was on code red. Scary. And that a man was in our school, so we went inside and I went and hid in the music room. Okay, so part 2. So I went and hid in the music room. Dad was in the PTA room, which was close by. Literally started crying because I was so scared and they weren't telling us anything because we were too young. I guess they didn't want to scare us. That didn't work. Once the code red was over, about 30 minutes later, we went to class. I went to go find my dad and make sure he was okay and see if he knew anything, and he didn't. When I got in my classroom, we were all talking about it, and my teacher said that the man just walked in and told them he was looking for one of his teachers from like 15 years back. Huh? They gave us a description of the man, and I realized it was the same man from Dunkin' Donuts. He just walked in my school. I was freaked out because I saw him at Dunkin' Donuts before school started, and I hoped I never saw him again. But a few weeks later, I saw him again multiple times at the same Dunkin' Donuts. He literally just stared at me all the time. So yeah, that's my little story.
Story time. So once upon a time in grade 5, I was going through this really strange phenomenon where like 5 of my adult teeth decided to all come in at once. Now I already had this really weird obsession with when I had a loose tooth, I loved to like pluck it out of my face like berries off of a vine. So as you can imagine, sitting there with 5 loose teeth in my mouth felt like I was in an orchard on a hot summer's day. My brothers had just rewatched The Exorcist with me a few nights before while babysitting. So its cinematic masterpiece was so ever fresh in my mind as I sat there not listening to my teacher drone on about numbers, secretly popping my teeth out with my tongue and letting my mouth fill with blood. Till I noticed my dear old classmate Tristane, who used to eat rulers and pick on me, was staring at me. So I looked him dead in the eyes, opened my mouth slowly and let all of the teeth and blood just dribble out onto the desk. Then I said in a low grumble, "You will die tonight." He started screaming and then I had to go to church.
One day, my cousin made a Tinder, and we were having a family barbecue, so he came over. He was like, "Oh my god, Sam, like this really hot girl just like matched with me," and then he shows me. And then I see the profile, and it's literally pictures of Madison beer. But the name on the profile was like Kalani. I was like, bro, I don't know who you think you're fucking texting, but it's not Madison beer. You're texting someone's fucking auntie right now. Whole ass auntie. He's like, guess we're about to find out. I was like, no? What the no? He's like, yeah, I just gave her the Addy. She's about to pull up. Like, we're gonna meet. Like, it's all cool, Sam. Like, trust me. Trust me. Trust me, he said. Okay. I trusted him. So I see a car pull up, and he's like, oh my god, I think it's her. I was like, oh shit, what if I do meet Madison Beer? The door freaking opens, and this old lady pops up. I look at my cousin, and I'm like, go hug her. Go. You were so excited. It's Kalani, the one and only. Come on.
This is a story of the time that I caught my neighbor's mom talking smack about me. So I don't know about you guys, but every single Wednesday in my middle school, we would have a bagel sale. And some people's parents would come in to help out. And my neighbor's mom was one of those parents. And I had a best friend at the time whose mom would also work at the bagel sales. But this best friend of mine, her mom never let us hang out with each other because she felt that I was a bad influence on her. When in reality, it was the complete opposite. She was the one that snuck the boys in her house, if you guys remember that story time, where they peed in a flower pot. So basically her mom wouldn't let us hang out. And sometimes my friend would go with her mom in the morning, basically as a ride to school, and to help out with the bagels too. And one day when she went in with her mom, my neighbor's mom also was there too. So my friend starts eavesdropping into their conversation, and my friend's mom brings me up and says how much of a bad kid I am and a bad influence. And my neighbor's mom was like, oh wow, that's my neighbor. Like, we always suspected something bad about her. Our whole entire neighborhood knows this about her. Basically making stuff up about me. So then I go home crying, tell my mom. Part 2 of catching my neighbor's mom talking smack about me. So my best friend tells me all these things that my neighbor was saying about me, obviously. And I got really upset, so I went home and I just started to cry. Because for some reason I felt like when I was younger, every one of my friends' parents hated me. And I never really knew why. I was always the type of person to let my friends do whatever they want and encourage them in doing whatever they want, whether that's breaking the rules or following the rules. So I mean, I guess that could be something, but I'm just being a supportive friend, sorry, I got off topic. So when I told my mom, she was like, okay, come with me, I'm gonna knock on her door. And I was like, heck no, I do not feel like dealing with this. Mom, you deal with it. So she calls her up on the phone, puts her on speakerphone, confronts her about the situation, and this lady starts going on about how she loves me like I'm her own child, saying that I was never a bad influence on her daughter, and that she actually wanted me to hang out with her daughter more. That's not what she was saying at Bagel Sale.
If you can solve this riddle, you're a genius. There was this woman and she was a serial killer. She would take men on dates and then poison them and kill them. One day she goes on a date with you. Ooh, but she can't go through with it because she's so in love with you. Eventually you two end up getting married and you buy a house together. When you buy the house, she claims the basement for her work and she says that you're not allowed to go down there. You say okay and you're happily married. But as time goes on, you get really curious and one day she leaves for work and you decide to go downstairs and see what's down there. When you go downstairs, it's pitch black and you reach around the walls to see if there's a light switch to turn on, but there isn't. As you're feeling around the room, there's a light bulb above you that is unscrewed a little bit. You screw it in a little bit more to turn on the light. Immediately you see all the dead bodies that she's ever killed and you're in shock as you're looking around for a while, but then you hear her car pull up in the driveway and she's home from work. You quickly unscrew the light bulb, run upstairs and sit down. When she gets home, she goes downstairs to check on her dead bodies and she immediately knew that you were in there. How did she know? Pause this video right now because I'm about to say the answer. It was because the light bulb was still hot.
So for the first time in a really long time, I actually had something scary happen to me last night. So I was up really late because my boyfriend's in Vegas and their time difference is 2 hours behind. And he goes to bed really late. So for the past few days, I've been staying up till 4 a.m. until he falls asleep. So last night I decided I wanted to get some food, a late night snack. And at this point, I think it's 2 a.m. And in my basement, I hear some rumbling and fumbling, but nobody's down there. Everybody's asleep. I don't have any pets. My dog's dead. I don't have any pets. So I'm in the kitchen listening, and my kitchen is right here, and the stairs to the basement is right there, and my house is low-key empty, so you could hear everything. And I start hearing little whispers, a little. So I'm sitting there eating my snack, and I hear that shit, and I pause the YouTube video I was watching, and I start hearing footsteps come upstairs. So I sat in my backyard for the rest of the night, up until 3 a.m., and then I went inside and went to bed.
I almost got shot at a party. Story time. So back when I was 18, one of my homegirls decided to visit me. Keep in mind, I lived about 2 hours away from her. In the ghetto. Anyway, she gets to my house. We're having a great time. We're chilling, we're vibing. Then one of my friends hits me up and says, "Hey, yo, Kenzie, there's a party tonight. You should slide." So, of course, I tell my homegirl, "Bitch, there's a party. Let's go." My friend was kind of nervous about it because this was her very first party that she's ever went to in her life. So she didn't know if she should go or not. And I was like, "Girl, like, you're going to be with me. You're going to be with Kenzie. Baby, we're going to have a good time." But I also did tell her if she didn't want to go, she can just chill with me and we could drink at the house. She ends up saying, "Fuck it." And we both go to the party. So we Uber to the party. This bitch is fat. There was hella people at this party, but it was lit as hell and everybody was turned the fuck up. Well, anyways, in the front of the house, there was a drug deal going on. And that's when everything goes south.
Story time of how I caught my teacher and my best friend doing the dirty. So everything was fine up until the middle of the year when she started acting really strange, and so did he. So at the time, I was 13 and she was 14. And I'm pretty sure my teacher was in his mid-20s or 30s. So basically, she's the type of girl who literally hates school and would do anything to get out of class. Then I noticed her getting early to class and not leaving until everybody else left. Then I started paying a little more attention, and he would always walk by her desk and slip her notes and candy and just weird stuff, and it was really, really strange to me. He also moved to her desk right next to his, which his was all the way in the back left corner of the classroom. He would also always make jokes with her, which I didn't really understand until I found out they were sleeping together. So on Friday, my mom messaged her parents asking if they could pick me up Monday because my parents were going out of town that weekend and I hated riding the bus. Well, I'm guessing she didn't know that I was going home with her Monday. So that Monday, I got into her mom's car and I asked her mom where she was. Her mom said that she was failing math and her math teacher offered to tutor her. This teacher was also brand new. I'm running out of time, so for part 2.
I the asshole for proposing to my girlfriend with a plastic ring as a joke? I am 35 male and my girlfriend is 30 female. We've been together for 5 years and she's made it known for the past 3 that she wants to get married. I always tell her to wait and see, it'll happen one day. Last night I was out with a few buddies and I got a little tipsy. While out, we went on arcade machines for fun and I won a stupid plastic ring. In my tipsy state, I was like, haha, it'd be a great idea if I pretend to propose to my girlfriend with this. My buddies laughed and agreed and I got home after midnight and woke my girlfriend up. I the asshole for proposing to my girlfriend with a plastic ring as a joke? I told her to get out of bed and she was worried and asked what's wrong. I sat her at the end of the bed, went down on one knee and presented her with the shitty ring and asked, "Will you marry me?" and then burst out laughing. She asked me angrily if I was for real and threw a pillow at me. She went into the bathroom and I followed her and she was crying. I was still tipsy and couldn't stop laughing, which I know is bad. She said, "I can't believe you think this is funny. You know how much it means to me to get married and you take that special moment away by getting on your knee as a joke?" I stupidly asked her how does she know that it's a joke and she said it better be with that ring. I told her she's right and that it's a joke, but she's way over the top right now. I went to sleep and today she said I made a mockery of our relationship. I the asshole for not wanting to support my boyfriend's early retirement? My boyfriend just paid off his mortgage and now wants to take early retirement on £8,000 per year. The only way he can afford to do this would be for me to move in with him and work full time so that the bills can be paid and he can do what he wants in his spare time. I am 50 and my own pension fund is not great, so I don't expect to be able to retire for the next 20 years. Am I being unreasonable in not wanting to uproot my life and that of my sons and wanting to pursue my own career on my own terms? I'm planning on going traveling while working once my son leaves home and saving as much as possible, not supporting my boyfriend who has never supported me. Am I the asshole for putting myself first?
My husband and I entered our relationship monogamous and honestly everything's been amazing. We have a couple of hobbies that we do together and friends that we hang out with and everything's been fine. My husband got a new job 2 years ago and meets lots of people all the time. I understand we still get crushes on people, but we love each other and I expect us to never act on that. One day he came to me asking for an open relationship and he was obviously researching it. He framed it by saying how good it would be for us and told me about all the positives. I was so secure in our relationship and figured, you know what, why not, even though I didn't really want it. I should have stuck up for myself more, but honestly, maybe this was meant to happen. He must have had someone in mind because right away he already had 2 women lined up and he was already seeing them. It's just crazy. We work full time, so we have our evenings to spend time together and do our hobbies together, but suddenly he's out on dates. A lot. It's really hurt me and I tried talking to him about it, but he was kind of manipulative and I see it now. After this, I finally started meeting other people online and chatting. I met one man who was very, very handsome and a really great guy and decided to meet up. I've never felt these feelings before. My husband and I kind of had a slow burn that got better with time, but this is just something completely different. We connect on a totally different level. It's better in the bedroom, so much passion, enthusiasm, and exploring. The conversations are better. He takes an interest in what I have to say and I love hearing about what he has to say. And honestly, we seem like a better fit. I've even opened up and told him about this open relationship and I didn't really want it and all the things that go with it. That's when he confessed that he's been waiting to see if it's possible for us to be monogamous. I'm planning on leaving my husband. I'm seeing a lot of things now that I never saw before, now that I've been with this new man for about 5 months. My husband has been coming home more often and I think things are falling apart with one of his women, possibly the other as well. I honestly don't even ask about it anymore, which I think he's kind of sense. He whines and moans that I'm going out too often, but I just kind of tell him the same thing he told me and do it anyway. He said he wants to talk about going back to normal. I don't know what to say to him. I want to be kind, but I also want to let him know that he destroyed what we had and what we could have had. I really don't want to do therapy or try to save this relationship. It feels over to me. What should I do and how should I go about it? My husband and I have been married for 5 years. I'm 26 and he's 27. My husband's family are typical snotty Catholic mega religious people. My husband's not religious in the slightest, but still remains respectful of their beliefs and has always lived a second life in private. I joined a dating app with the sole purpose of finding some other couple or even meeting a porn. This was my husband's idea. Usually we go to swinger parties where we feel safe and not judged. I've never used a dating app, so I posted typical what I do for work, what music, movies I like, etc. I identified as bisexual, so myself and my husband have shared a few women and never had an issue. While on the app, I guess some girl who knows my husband is fairly saw me. They confronted me in front of everyone and accused me of cheating. His aunt said horrible things about me. I tried to tell him that he knew and he didn't back me up or say anything. The argument got heated more and that's when I exposed us. I told his family everything. How we shared other women, slept with other couples, and even though they babysat while we did this. I believe that was the part where I was an asshole. My husband felt like I disrespected his family for saying that, even though he didn't stick up for me while they called me a whore, among other things. Now his innocent, holy reputation is ruined and he says because of me he can't show his face to his family. Am I the asshole? Storytime about the most embarrassing moment working as a TSA agent. So I work for the TSA and have for a few years now. It's a good job for all. I'm underpaid, but the benefits are nice and I get overtime when I want. Over a year ago, during the week leading up to Christmas, we had some really bad weather that delayed all the flights. I volunteered to stay late so that my coworkers could go home to their families. Most of the work was done anyway, so it was mostly just standing around waiting for the odd big comer. I was working the AIT, the space tube thingy, when 3 passengers came up to get a middle-aged man, a middle-aged woman, and a teenage boy. Mom goes through, all is fine. Dad goes through, all is fine. Kid comes up, I get a good look at him. Hoodie, sweatpants, shortish hair, smooth face. I figure he's at 13, maybe 14. I hit the button, direct him to wait with me for a moment, and I gesture to the screen, which lit up his chest area. I tell him that I have to cut the area down. He's a little nervous. I figure that's because he's so young. This is probably his first time getting a pat down, but if he says okay, and I start the pat down. I do the left side of the chest and feel some move, which catches me off guard because he doesn't look chubby at all. I move to the right side of the chest, read what's on the hoodie, and it all clicks at once. The hoodie has the name of a local college on it. This is an adult, not a child. He's not wearing sweatpants. She is wearing yoga pants. She doesn't even know the couple that just came through. I look at her face, which is bright red, my hand's still on her boob, and I pull it back like I just got bit by a snake. I immediately call for my supervisor, who comes over and asks what's wrong, and I explain the situation to her. That's when my supervisor covers her mouth in what I believe is utter shock. After cooking something that I thought was a boy, I call my supervisor over. I tell her the situation and she covers her mouth. At first, I thought she was absolutely mortified, but then I realized she's trying not to laugh. She takes a minute to pull herself together, tells me to go take a break, and finish the screening the passenger herself. Once that was done, I apologize to the passenger. She tells me it's fine, that it wasn't the first time she was mistaken for a boy, and she probably should have said something before I started touching her. I leave her alone and go talk to my supervisor to figure out how exactly fired I am. She tells me to calm down, that it was just an honest mistake, and that she has my back if the passenger files an official complaint, but that probably won't happen and I shouldn't be worried. That reassured me a little, but I still groped a woman and ruined Christmas, so I feel like an absolute monster. I swallow my shame and finish my shift, then I go to the airport proper to find some food because I just finished a 12-hour shift and there's no way I have energy to cook dinner. I saw my hapless victim sitting at her gate waiting for her flight. I went up to her to apologize again and saw that the flight had been delayed until morning. It was about 11 at night at this point. I apologize again, she says it's fine, and I ask her if she's planning to stay the whole night. She said she has to because all the hotels in the area are booked. I tell her that I'm getting some dinner and I offer to get her some food as well. After all, I already got to second base. I think it's only fair that I buy her dinner. She agrees and we go to one of the restaurants that's open late, get some food and start eating. She said she gets mistaken for a boy a lot and it's not a big deal. We ended up talking for a few hours before I finally told her that I had to get home and apologize again for the accidental molestation. She said that all is forgiven if I promise to take her on a real date when she gets back. I agreed. She gave me her number and I immediately started texting her when I got home. We kept talking until her flight finally left. When she got back, I picked her up at the airport and a few days later took her on a real date that I promised her. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary.
I have always had a really hard time saying no to my family members and also coworkers, which I think maybe stems from my deep-seated fears of being unloved or ending up unemployed. But I was listening to a Jay Shetty podcast, love Jay, and he pointed out that we need to learn to say no, because when we say yes to things that we don't want to do, a lot of the times we end up resenting the person who asked us to do that thing because they forced us to do something we didn't like. And that was all I needed to hear to shift my brain, shift my thinking, I guess. Because I realized that if I value my long-term relationships with family members or with work associates, I need to start learning to say no. And so I started doing it. And it's amazing! I said no to my brother the other day, and he still loves me. And I said no to a work associate. Somebody reached out and asked for help with something that they were working on. And I said, sorry, I can't help you until Monday. And they were like, cool. And they didn't get mad at me or anything. And it's so like... Do people just walk around all the time saying no to like their coworkers and their family and then not feel stressed about all the stuff that they never wanted to do in the first place? I hate it when people reach out to me and say stuff like, hey, what are you doing Friday night, with zero follow-up information? Cause like, I don't know what I'm doing Friday night yet. If you're about to ask me to join your ultimate frisbee team that night, I'm gonna be super busy doing anything but that. But if you ask me to do something that doesn't totally suck, I might be hanging out with you Friday night. I don't know. And another thing about that question is it changes as you get older. Because when I was younger, my friends would be like, hey, what are you doing Friday night? And I would say, I don't know. And they would say, perfect, we're going to a party. You should totally come. But now, a lot of them say stuff like, hey, what are you doing Friday night? And I'll say, oh, I don't know. And they'll say, perfect, we're going to a party Friday night. You should totally come watch the kids. They miss you. I never know what to say when I'm on a date with a guy and I get into his car and I say, wow, this is a really cool car. And he could say thank you, which would be a great response. But instead, a lot of men like to say thank you. I spent a lot of money on it, which is just like, can you not? They don't need to say that. We know that your car was expensive. That's like if back when I had hair extensions, whenever people gave me compliments on them, instead of just saying thank you, I said thank you. They were $1,200. Like, it's not just that people don't need to know the information. It's more that it's not interesting information. Like, we don't care. If you have an interesting story about how you got your car, that's something that you could share. Like one time I was on a road trip with my buddy and I said, hey, is this a new car? And he said, yeah, I just got it from an old man off of Craigslist last week. It was only $600. This is my first real drive with it. But the only thing we have to remember is that there's no windshield wiper fluid because for some reason he took out the ducts that hold the windshield wiper fluid. And I was like, oh, is that why whenever the windshield gets dirty, you pull up really close to a semi truck so it splashes water on us? And he was like, yeah, that's why. I just don't get the compulsion to tell people. I feel like if you're on a date with somebody and they say this is a cool car and you want to say thanks, I spent a lot of money on it. Like, I'm not telling you how to date, but maybe don't. On behalf of single people everywhere, please stop setting us up. Unless your single friend comes to you and says, hey, do you know of anybody that you could maybe set me up on a date with? Just stop. We're so tired of you guys pimping us out to each other, and the people you set us up with are crazy. One time, I got set up on a date with a guy who didn't even like music. We were just driving and listening to AM radio, and I said, would you maybe like to listen to some music? And he said, no, thank you. I don't like music. And I thought he was joking. So I left. And then he said, no, really, I don't like music. I don't get what the hype is. Everyone's so obsessed with music. But when you think about it, it's really just different noise than what we're listening to right now. And I was like, sir, are you a serial killer? Because that sounds like something a serial killer would say. And if you are, could you please just calmly pull the car off to the side of the road, let me get out, and kill me there, instead of making me listen to AM radio for the rest of our date? And another time, somebody set me up with a guy. She didn't even know. She met him one time, and he had a dog. And she was like, my friend Kate also has a dog. You guys should go on a date. And then she said, but Kate... She was trying to talk me into it later, and she was like, wouldn't it be so cute, though, if you guys fell in love and then your dogs fell in love? And I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a solid basis for a relationship. And so I went on a date with the guy. He picked me up in the middle of winter. It was 30 degrees out. He took me to a park. We went on a walk. It was very cold. It was so cold. And so finally I said, I would like to not do this anymore. And he took me back to his car and he said, well, I just took you on a really long walk. Should I like feed you now or something? And I was like, should you feed me? First of all, yes, always. Second of all, have you been on a date with a human woman in a while, or like just your dog? And then when I tell people I don't want to get set up, they get sneaky about it. Like one time I got in a huge fight with my friend's fiance, and then she called me later. He was wrong, I was right, which is why I wasn't shocked when she said, hey, he feels really bad about what he did to you, so he bought you an extra ticket to come see stars with us tonight. And I thought that is so sweet. And so I went to go see stars with them. And while we were driving, he said, would you mind taking off your Seahawks beanie? And I said, no, why would I do that? And he said, well, not everybody likes the Seahawks. And I said, yeah, that's the whole point of sports. And then when we got to the movie theater, he had set me up on a date with his cousin. It was a trap! It was an actual trap! And his cousin said, ew, Seahawks, that's embarrassing for you. And I was like, your mom's embarrassed of you. And then he said, that was mean, I was just joking. And I was like, so was I. But apparently, I hit a sour spot. I used to agree that the stupidest part of Superman was that people didn't recognize him when he wore glasses. They were like, who's this? Not Superman. But then I got on TikTok and I started making you guys videos for my car. And every time I post a video not in my car, everybody in the comments section is like, who's this bitch? Why is she in our feed? We don't know her. And now it makes sense. Now I'm like, oh, people would believe that Superman's a different person just because of one tiny little detail. One of the most memorable talks I ever had with my dad was when we watched Taken for the very first time. And if you don't know the plot of Taken, you should by now, because what happens is Liam Neeson's daughter gets kidnapped and Liam Neeson goes on a murderous rampage and he rescues his daughter. And after the movie ended, the credits were rolling and my dad turned to me and he was like, listen, I can't do any of that. So you be careful, because if you get kidnapped, you're gone. Okay? And you be extra careful because we live next to the ocean. And if they get you on a boat, then you're really gone. And I was just like, one of the reasons I struggle to make friends, I think, is because I've gotten so picky about when I go out. Like, somebody invited me to a party this last week on a Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. 8:30 p.m. And I was like, you want to start the party at the witching hour, basically, at 8:30 p.m.? That's crazy. Don't y'all have jobs to get to in the morning? Like, how am I supposed to attend your party at 8:30 p.m. and then also shower, take my melatonin, and be spooning my dog by 9 p.m.? That just doesn't, no. Just no.
Am I the asshole for sending my stepbrother the bill to pay half of my engagement dinner expenses after he turned it into a baby gender reveal? Me and my stepbrother Ethan met when we were very young. He grew up being very competitive towards me and acted like we were in a race. For example, he got married on my mom's death anniversary. Years later, he seemed to be mature and respectful. He wants me to be an aunt for his future kid, as he and his wife are expecting. Days ago was my engagement dinner, and it was held in a prestigious restaurant that cost me and fiance Morgan money. Ethan and his wife showed up unexpectedly and they congratulated us. Ethan finished his drink and then announced the gender of his baby. He said, "We just found out it's a boy, everyone." Am I the asshole for sending my stepbrother the bill to pay half of my engagement dinner expenses? The family got excited and ordered more drinks, and they started playing Guess the Name We Chose. We watched the dinner turn into a gender reveal party, and we were ignored the rest of the night. Morgan said that Ethan was acting like a high school attention-seeking B-word and ruined our night. I said we had to do something, and he said, "What do you have in mind?" I sent Ethan the bill for half of everything Morgan and I paid for with a brief explanation. He called yesterday going hysteric, saying I can't make him pay for anything when I'm the one that invited him. But I never invited him. He said my stepmom said that he was invited and that he didn't intend on hijacking anything and that someone just asked him about his baby and he answered. He said he still had to pay. Am I the asshole for calling my husband delusional for demanding I give him 50% profit of my business? My husband is a bank clerk and I have a WFH job, which I barely bear since I'm an active outdoor person and love gardening. I decided to use our backyard to grow flowers and sell them online after arranging them into bouquets. When I told my husband, he said it was the worst idea ever and that it would be a major waste of time and money and that I should get a second job. I still started my business little by little. In a matter of 18 months, it started bringing in decent money and I gained customers. My husband said I was doing a good job of keeping our business flowing. I corrected him and reminded him about his lack of faith. He said he didn't think my little hobby would go anywhere, but now that it has, he wants 50% and won't settle for less. Am I the asshole for calling my husband delusional for demanding I give him 50% profit of my business? He said that he should get 50% because I'm using his soil to grow my flowers. I said this is our house and both of our names are on the title. He said I actually owned this house long before you came along, so it's technically mine. I said if we separated, it would be split in half. He joked about how silly I was for hinting separation just because he was asking for something he deserved. I said no and that he was delusional to ask because even his soil alone doesn't magically grow my flowers. There's a lot of work I put in. I said it didn't matter to him when I started using his soil, why now? He said it always matters when money is involved. He apologized for being rude but says he still wants 50%.
Story time about how I did the you-know-what with my celebrity crushes. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I'm from a really small town in the Midwest. Growing up, I knew I wanted to go to LA and be famous. As soon as I turned 20, I decided to move to LA. Showed up to LA with $400 and a dream. My dream was to meet all of my celebrity crushes. I happened to be tall and pretty good looking, so I got myself a modeling agency. A few weeks after I got to LA, I booked my first job. I got to model for a runway show. From there, I met a stylist who introduced me to a bunch of people. And from that, I was able to start going to a bunch of industry parties. I met tons of celebrities, influencers, and basically socialites. I even met Kim Kardashian at a party 4 years ago. When I would go to these parties, I would tell people that I was a model. model. But in order to prove that, I had to have a pretty big following on Instagram. So I took all of my savings that I had and I bought myself 100,000 followers on Instagram. With those 100,000 followers, I was able to get verified. And after that, I started DMing as many celebrities as I could, especially my celebrity crushes. And no, I won't say who they are. After a few weeks, I still didn't have the responses that I wanted, aka from my celebrity crushes, but I started getting some responses from other celebrities. Not as famous or good looking, but still people that could definitely help me get to them. Basically, my life consisted of going to castings, go-sees, and going to photo shoots. I also started doing music videos, and this is when it really got interesting. I started meeting tons of rappers and started getting invited to bigger and bigger parties, like really exclusive parties. The kind where you couldn't take your phone in, and the kind where you had to sign an NDA to make sure that you couldn't say anything about what you saw at the party. My Instagram was also growing really quickly. I went from 100,000 followers to 150,000 within a few months. I even became really good friends with some celebrities that worked on TV shows, like the kind of TV shows that you guys see on Netflix. I felt like I was getting closer and closer to my dream, but still, I never met my celebrity crushes at any of those parties. One morning, I wake up to a few DMs on my Instagram, and it was one of my celebrity crushes. I basically sent him a message just saying, "Hey, I'm in town, I'd love to take you out for a drink." And he replied with a yes. Nothing else, just a yes. I quickly replied and asked him if he wanted to go for a drink that night. He agreed to meeting up at a bar on Sunset Boulevard. I want you guys to understand something though. I was looking for a boyfriend, not just a one night, you know. So I wore my cutest outfit, nothing sexy. I basically looked like a Chanel model from the 1950s. As soon as he saw me, he told me that I was beautiful and we got to talking. Everything was going really, really great. After that, you know what happened. But here's the thing. I messaged him on Instagram the next day and he didn't reply. He didn't even ask me for my phone number. I got really sad, but the next day I opened up my DMs to another celebrity crush. Part 2 is up. 2 of how I did it with my celebrity crushes. So after I had my date with my biggest celebrity crush ever, he never called me back. But the very next day, I wake up to a DM from another celebrity crush. Now, I didn't think this one would respond because he was in a relationship at the time. No, I'm not going to say who it is. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. He was super nice over DM and asked me if I wanted to go have lunch. I said yes, of course. We decided to have lunch on the weekend. Throughout the week, he would message me and ask me how I was. But 2 days before the meeting, he totally ghosted me. I didn't hear back from him at all. So the day before the date, I texted him. He finally replied and told me that he had been working. We decided to have dinner and he started asking me tons of questions, like if I had a boyfriend, and I told him I was totally single. When I asked him if he had a girlfriend, he stayed quiet. He said he didn't want to answer that question. Of course I knew he had a girlfriend because it was all over the tabloids. Like there were tons of paparazzi pictures of them together. But here's the thing. We had a fancy dinner. Then he asked me if I want to go back to his place. Of course I said yes. And when I get there, I see pictures of him with his girlfriend, the one he didn't want to talk about before. I then go to the bathroom, open the cabinets, and it's full of girl stuff. I quickly realized that he took me to his girlfriend's place to, you know what? I mean, maybe they had an open relationship, but at the same time, like, why would he take me to his girlfriend's place? But I kept my goal in mind. We finally, you know what? And then afterward, he asked me if I wanted to sleep over. That's when I told him no because I knew that we were in his girlfriend's place. He starts laughing and tells me that she's out of town and that she'll never find out that he took me there. I asked him how many girls he's taken there before, and once again, he said he didn't want to answer the question. He then hit me up every single day for like a month. I didn't know if I should see him again because of the whole girlfriend thing, but then I got another DM